I had some witnesses in here. And instead of him getting upset with God, he said, have mercy on me, O God, according to thy loving kindness, according unto the multitude of thou many tender mercies. In your darkest hour, I'll be right there. In the midst, says the Lord. You need a blessing. You need some love. Stand on the word. God hates a false witness that speaks lies. You better be careful how you lie, because somebody said a lie can leave Atlanta and get to the West Coast before you can get your pants on. You need a healing. You need salvation. Whatever you need, have a little patience. I'll be there. Oh, I'll be right there. In the midst. Oh, yeah. Right in the midst. I'll be right there.
But as you know, my husband, Dr. R.L. White, his doctoral dissertation was on death, dying, and grief. So for the last 5 or 6 years, I have been teaching grief seminars for Willie Watkins every last Thursday of every month. During my training, I was a chaplain at Southern Regional Hospital for a year, and I was assigned to the oncology floor, where I had to talk to people who were dying every day. So I've had a lot of experience with grief, and now I've had a personal experience, and I have a brand new respect for people who have lost. I have always cared and been compassionate for anyone who lost someone, but now I know exactly what it feels like. I'm telling you, I have been in the fight of my life to keep going, to get up in the morning, to eat, to sleep, to answer my phone. And this seminar actually was supposed to be in February, but Dr. McElroy and the doctor from Morehouse felt that it was too soon for me to do something like that. So they canceled the seminar and didn't tell me they canceled it until after they canceled it. And I was like, I'll do it, because when I was on the radio and my mother died, it was like 5 minutes to 6, and I had a show to do, and there was nobody to do it but me. So I had no choice but to get my act together and do that show. So I knew that I could do this in February, but they felt it was too much, so they canceled it. And thank God we were given permission to reschedule it for today. So that's why it is happening today. Let's start with, what is grief? Grief is the price of losing someone that you love. Grief is the pain you feel when your heart is broken. Grief is that numb, deep, I don't know how to breathe, I don't know if I can make it, that you feel when you have loss in your life. Now, I want to quickly say that grief doesn't just apply to the loss of a loved one. Grief applies to any loss. The loss of a job, and perhaps some of you in here can name some losses. The loss of a home, the loss of a car, the loss of a relationship, the loss of a friend, the loss of somebody hurt your feelings and they don't apologize for it. Any loss, the loss of a pet. A young man called me yesterday, devastated. His puppy died that he and his mother had for years. Grief can be the loss of a limb. When women have breast cancer, grief is the loss of not being able to move the way you used to. Health issues. Are there any other losses you can think of? That you maybe did not think of it as a loss, but it is. Divorce, it's a big one. It's a good one. Loss. A loss of a child. What'd you say, baby? Spiritual leader. So the reason I wanted to do this is because here at Mount Ephraim, the entire church is in grief. And many of us don't realize it and realize the effect, how grief affects you. There is a process to grief. You may go through the entire process. You may not go through any of the process, or you may go through it go from step 1 to step 6, step 5, and so forth. What is that process? The first process is denial. You cannot believe it. And if I happen to cry a little bit today, you have to forgive me, because yesterday was 2 months that Reverend White had died. The first step is denial. I remember driving home from the hospital, and I felt the steering wheel. I knew my foot was on the gas pedal. I knew the car was moving, but I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. I got home. I remember walking up the steps. I thought, this is unreal. I just couldn't believe it. And I did not sleep at all that night. How many remember when you experienced loss, you could not believe it? The second step, second and third steps really, is anger turned inward and anger turned outward. Anger turned inward is when you get angry at yourself because you feel you should have done more. You should have said, I love you more. You should have, maybe the person asked you for a glass of water and you didn't get it before they passed. Or maybe they wanted to go on a trip and you put the trip off and didn't go. So you're angry at yourself. Now in anger turned inward, it can be real, or in grief, your mind will cause you to make up stuff to feel guilty about that has nothing to do with the situation. Then the third step is anger turned outward, where you get mad at the doctor, mad at the family members. And when it's anger turned outward, you are angry at anybody near you, anybody living in the house with you, anybody that you interact with close, they're going to get it. Because that anger turned outward is going to be there. Whether it's real or not, it comes out. Depression, where you just feel low and sad, and you don't know why. On the 14th of February, and on the 14th of April, this is April, I don't know why I was feeling so bad. And then it dawned on me, because the 15th will be 2 months. And it just happens. Something just jumps off on the inside of you. And anything can bring it on. A song. Many people can't go back to the church where the funeral took place. And I don't know if you saw the first time I went back to the cemetery, I fell apart. I don't. Anybody see that on Facebook? I thought I was going to lose my mind. Because, you know, initially you can't do anything to the grave for 3 months until what the grave people say, the casket has to set in the ground. So it's just dirt. And when I went out there and saw that dirt and knew my husband was in there, I like to lost my mind. And I need to talk to somebody. Now, I couldn't think of anybody, so I talked to Facebook. Because, you know, I don't never talk to Facebook. Rarely do I put anything on there. It was just a terrible experience. But it is a necessary experience. But in my seminars, people can't go back to the cemetery for years. But I went on Reverend Mike's birthday. And I'm glad I went. And the next time I went was Easter. Now, Easter I did better. I didn't cry. I didn't feel like crying. I went and bought all these flowers before I came to church. And I thought, after I drove out there, I thought, I was scared to get out the car because I didn't know what I was going to do. But I said, Lorraine, you done spent all this money on these flowers. You need to get out and go through it. There's no easy way through grief. It's painful. It hurts. You cry. So I got out the car and I didn't cry. I didn't feel like crying. I made it okay that day. So you have anger turned inward. You have anger turned outward. Then the next, depression may pop up anytime. Then there is acceptance. I am not there now. I would say I now am probably at, well, I get probably anger turned outward because what happened with us is the doctor was telling Reverend White how great he was doing and the treatment was working and everything was going fine. And we were so excited and we went for a treatment and the doctor comes in and says, the treatment's not working. Now, you know your pastor. He's easygoing. He just shook his head. But Tara's here. Back to 2001 Wiley Avenue in Pittsburgh. I just could not believe she was saying that. And so I'm at the point now where I'm still angry with her. And they call me all the time, send me cards. I'm not responded because I'm still thinking about a lawsuit. Because the same reports we were getting, our primary care doctor was getting. And when we called him up and told him, this lady just told us that the treatment is not working, he couldn't believe it. The primary care doctor couldn't believe it, that that's what she was saying. So that's still going through my mind. I don't know if I'm going to do it or not, but something didn't go right for me with that. Then the next step is acceptance and then resolution. During acceptance, you accept, yes, this has happened, I'm going to go on with my life. And then resolution is where you decide life goes on. Now, when you decide that life goes on, that doesn't mean that you don't love your loved one anymore, but you make a decision that you're going to go on and you're going to go ahead and live. Because Reverend White would want me to live. He wouldn't want me to be sad for the rest of my life and crying for the rest of my life. And every restaurant I go to, I'm sitting there eating breakfast. Because everywhere I go, I'm crying because I think about him when I'm eating breakfast, because that's where we used to go. Every restaurant I go and I eat dinner, I think about him because that's where we used to go. So I cry through dinner, pay for it, or don't eat it and take it home and don't eat it. This has been an painful experience. Painful. Now, it has not bothered me at all to come to church, to where the funeral took place. But everything else. And I'm still going through all of that. So when I see you, and if I look like I'm way out in Wazoo in space somewhere, I am. Because I think about him every day. Every day, I think about him. Every day. And I want him to come back. I want to see him. And I'm the one who would say, if somebody dies in my family, I don't want to see him. I don't want him coming back. I would always say that. Oh, you better watch what you say. Yes. Is the doctor here? She's here? 10 minutes. Okay. Okay, she'll be here in 10 minutes. So I'll keep talking. So do we have any questions? Oh, yes. We've got questions. Good. Does it help to have the picture of your loved one in view in your room every day? Every day, I look at Reverend White's funeral program. Every day. It's the first thing I do. I have it in the bed with me. When I leave the bedroom and I go into the living room to have my water and watch the morning news, I take that program with me. I look at it every day. Now, does it help? It helps me. It doesn't hurt, I can tell you that. It doesn't hurt to do that, because there will come a time when you won't need to do that. How long is that going to be? The grieving process is personal. It's individual. It's different for everybody. Some people grieve a year. Some people told me they grieve 2 years. Remember, one lady came to a grief seminar. She talked about her husband and she cried, and I thought, oh gosh, I know this is new. It had been 18 years ago. But she had never dealt with any of these steps. What I'm telling you, she had never learned. Nobody had ever told her these things. So it's different. Don't rush yourself. Don't let people tell you don't cry. If you feel like crying, cry. If you feel like crying because you can't walk like you used to, cry. If you feel like crying because you've been divorced, you lost a friend, somebody hurt your feelings, and they've not said they're sorry, cry. That's all right. God gave us tears. Tears speak to God. I cry at least once every day. Every day. And that's why when I'm here, now, usually when church is over, I'm gone. Because I know if I start talking to people, that I'm going to start crying. This morning, when Ron Comer prayed that beautiful, wonderful prayer, I just broke down. And I said, oh God, help me get it together. Help me pull it together. Grief is no joke. But I promise you, after today, everyone in here is going to feel better. The next question, how do you start to put your life back together afterwards when you are alone? The how question is this. How do you move through grief? You can write this down. You talk it out. You cry it out. And you reminisce it out. You talk it out. Now I live alone. So people call me and they apologize. They don't know. They're helping me. Because what do I talk to? I ain't got no dog. And I don't want no dog because I'm not getting up in the morning walking no dog. So I don't mind. I'm happy when people call me. Who am I going to talk to? Who am I to talk to? You talk it out. Talk about how you feel. If it's because you've had breast cancer or lost a breast, that's a loss. Talk about it when you're able to. Thank you, sweetheart. Talk about it, wherever it is. If you've lost, I've had a leg replacement, hip replacement, knee replacement. That's a loss. It's different than what you used to be. Talk about it. Don't feel bad about talking about it. A divorce, even if it was bad, talk about it. And let me say this quickly: we need to grieve the whole person. What do I mean by that? Like when there's a funeral, you don't never get anybody come up here to this microphone over here and talk about how bad the person was. And we know they wasn't perfect. Come on now. But you need to grieve the whole person. Am I saying, do you need to say bad things about the dead? No. But you need to not act like that bad part didn't exist. Because you need to grieve that out also. Grieve it out. You talk about it to yourself. Write about it. Not to somebody, but just journal. Journaling is the same as talking. Journaling is as good as talking to somebody. I say what's the first thing you do? You talk it out. Second thing you do is you cry it out. Man or woman, don't let anybody make you think men ain't supposed to cry. Tears speak to God. Tears release pressure. And somebody that has had somebody to die and they haven't cried, all of that pressure is building up on the inside of them. And it's not good. Cry it out. Then you reminisce about it. Thinking about the good times, the places you went together. I think about when Reverend Mike took me to London and Paris and Germany and Rome, Italy, and so Barbados, Bermuda, Bahamas. So I don't have like, oh gosh, I wish we would have done this before he died. Or I wish we would have done that. I don't have that. Everything I could have wanted to do, we did. We went there. And I'm not going nowhere now with these crazy people on planes, fighting and shanks on planes and all that kind of stuff. We did it, but reminisce about it. Reminisce about the barbecues, the Christmas, the Thanksgiving. Yesterday I was thinking about Thanksgiving and Christmas and wondering, how am I going to make it? Christmas and Thanksgiving. And I want to say that a great part of my healing has been you. Our members call me day and night. They text me all hours, thinking about you. Hope you're feeling better. Or they'll send me teddy bears and pictures and all kinds of things. I couldn't ask for more love from my church family to help me through this crisis. And I am going through a crisis. And our doctor, Garrison, is now here from Morehouse College. So we'll begin the tape rolling now. We got lots of questions. I'll answer these questions and then we'll start the tape. What do you do when you don't want to move on or live? It's just too much to manage. Ooh, I lost my pastor and brother in the same week. If you were here, one thing I want to tell you for sure is that neither one of them would not want you to not live. And yes, you can live. And we've got Dr. Garrison here, and I'm going to let her speak more about living and going on. In all of this pain that I've gone through, there hasn't been a moment when I did not want to live. It has never gotten that bad that I don't want to live. You can live. You can make it through this pain. And the things that I'm telling you work. I'm not telling you the how to get through this. I'm not telling you something to make you feel good while you're here. That's not going to work. It works. A woman came to me 3 years ago in the grief seminars that I do, and her and her husband every night would get in bed and watch the news or whatever. She was the talker. He was the one that just listened most of the time. So one evening they were in bed and he wasn't saying anything, but she, that's who he was. But she punched him like this, and he rolled over and didn't say nothing. She said, "Now, Negro, you ain't said a word all evening." He was dead. She has no idea when he died that evening. When that lady came to me, she was one, because we do partner with the psychological center. I thought I was going to have to send her for a treatment, for a psychological treatment. She kept coming. She kept crying. All she would do was come and cry. She wouldn't talk. She wouldn't say nothing, but she'd come and cry. But I was watching her, and if I didn't see her one week, I'd call her and check on her and see how she was doing. Today, that lady's going to Cancun and everywhere. She's doing fine. So what I am telling you works. I'm in the middle of that kind of pain right now, but I know I'm going to get better. I don't know where better is, but I know I'm going to get there. I know that. And you are going to get better. A couple more questions, Dr. Garrison, then I'll come in. Oh, yes.
So can I talk now?
Oh, you certainly can. Come on, your chair is right here. Yes, I was going to introduce you. Just let me introduce you, and then you can go ahead and make your comments.
Okay.
This wonderful, wonderful lady from Morehouse College. We have a
Morehouse School of Medicine.
Morehouse School of Medicine. We're blessed. Let's give her a hand, Dr. Garrison. 2 more questions, and then we'll go on. I hate when I go to my house the first few minutes. I'm thinking about changing the room around, so I will not think so much about being alone. Do you think that will help? It may be helpful. Some people do that. I haven't changed anything. I got Reverend White suits that I plan to give to Goodwill, and some of them to some of the men here at church have asked me for them, and I'm going to give them to them. But I can't do it right now. I can't do it right now. I'm going to do it, but I can't do it right now. Sometimes on Wednesday or Saturday, you see me with that blue hat on because he liked it. And he wore it all the time. And when I have it on some kind of way, I feel close to him. That's okay if you change things around. But changing things around, just know you're looking for healing. The healing is in the Holy Spirit helping you, and that might be good for you, but don't think it's a pill that you're taking that's going to make everything go away. That's not going to happen like that. I have church grief. I believe I'm at the angry turned outward. I want to move on. And you will. You will move on, but this takes time. How much time? It's different for everybody. There's no block of time that's the same for everyone. It's different for everyone. But I want you to know, everybody sitting in here today, you are going to be all right. And you know the situation I'm in, but you're going to be all right. We're going to make it. Everything's going to be all right. After the storm passes over, everything is going to be all right. This didn't come to stay. It came to pass. You're going to be all right. I might go back out to the cemetery and put another crying thing on Facebook. I might do that. And I might not. But I know I'm going to be all right. It's pain. There's no other way through it. But you're going to be all right. We're a family. We're going to help each other. Does our loved ones still remember us after they're gone? I miss my mom, and I don't want her to forget about me. I still cry every day. That first question, I don't know, because I've never been to heaven. Does our loved ones still remember us after they're gone? I don't know. I don't have an answer to that question. I miss my mom, and I don't want her to forget about me. I still cry every day. The love that you had with your mom when she was here, do you think she would forget about you? No. Do you think she would want you to stop living? Do I think Reverend White would want me to just forget about him? Stop going to church? Stop eating? Stop sleeping? No. Because I know how we were when he was here. You are going to get better. And now I'm going to introduce you to our dynamic guest. And Weldon, we're ready to start rolling, baby. We're already rolling? Oh, he's already got it going. And now I'm just answering these questions, and he's already taping us. This awesome, incredible young woman is from the Morehouse School of Medicine. Yes, I'm going to introduce her. Yes, it's beautiful. Dr. Shawn Garrison. She specializes in psychology. She is the psychologist and director of counseling services at Morehouse School of Medicine. And we are so blessed to have her with us today. And I want you to give her a warm Mount Ephraim welcome. Let's give her a hand. Dr. Shawn Garrison. Dr. Garrison, please start with some opening remarks, and then we'll give you some questions, and we'll move on from there.
First of all, let me tell you that there may have been some miscommunication. I thought I was supposed to be here at 1. I would not have shown up what appeared to be late because, can't y'all hear me? If it's going, can y'all hear me? Thank you. Because I wouldn't disrespect this process like that. This is really important. I am from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a Grady baby boomer. I've been at Morehouse School of Medicine for 33 years. I started when the school was about 15 years old, maybe. And I didn't mean to stay the whole time, but things kept being interesting. They kept growing and doing stuff, so that was important to me. Our mission is to serve underserved populations, to serve underserved communities. And we have evolved to knowing that there's such a thing as health inequity. We want to deal with health equity. But it's also been our tradition. We're traditionally an HBCU medical school. We split off from Morehouse College, I think in 1978 or so. So the other thing that's so important to me is that Morehouse School of Medicine is about the community that I came from, what I know. And as we continue moving forward, this is so important. So thank you so much, first of all, for giving me the opportunity to be here and to talk with my people. I'm a clinical psychologist and recently have become board certified as a national certification, which was an interesting process. So I want you to know that while I have training, what's most important to me is to tell the truth about what I know works and what is relevant to us. So I want to talk about grief. Please know that some of the stuff you're hearing, our medical students hear it. At Morehouse School of Medicine, we have medical students, we have physician assistant program, we have a master's in public health, we have a PhD in biomedical sciences program, some other masters in biomedical sciences, and something else. Can't remember the other one. Oh, we have some pipeline programs to help you get into medical school in these places. So I say this to lots of people. And there's so much I want to say. I'm glad I got a chance to hear some of the questions. There's a reason why we grieve. There's a point to it. Grief and mourning, I see those things as connected but maybe slightly separate events. Whichever way you want to, whatever words you want to use, I don't care about the semantics, but mourning is, oh my goodness, I'm hitting the head, a great big chunk of my life hit me in the head and I'm just sort of still and numb, trying to make some space for what has happened. And then the second part of it, grieving, is an active process that you have to choose to be a part of. Normally I have a PowerPoint presentation because I have so many things to say. Actually, PowerPoint keeps me from saying too much, not telling me what to say. So I'm going to try to look at my notes so I can keep going and give time for people's questions. The first thing I want you to know is that grief, mourning and grief, is absolutely, positively a human experience. It is normal. It is very individual. It's very intense. You often get surprised by this process. No matter how much you've learned about it, no matter how much you've taught and talked about things, at some point it's like, what is going on? And as you've already heard, there's no right way to grieve. Just like there's no right way to be a human being necessarily, or to feel love. Grieving is very individual. It's defined by you. Your grief is yours. And so to the extent that you're a human being like everybody else, you have things in common, but to the extent that you are your own person with your own experiences, you're the intersect of everything that's happened to you in your life. To that extent, your grief is yours. We are talking mostly about grieving the loss of persons, but I do just want to take a minute and let you know that real grief happens when we lose other things, like youth, like when our children, if we have children, move out, We have transitions in our lives. We leave the house that was safe for us. We leave a job. Anything that is really important and matters to you, when it's gone, or we grieve graduating from high school to college. I remember going, oh no, now what? I see the medical students, it doesn't look like grief, but they graduate from medical school, they go, okay, so now I'm supposed to be what, a doctor? What is this? I have to say goodbye to what I knew. So a lot of grieving is about transition and loss, and it's about saying goodbye to what you knew. Does that make sense so far? Somebody got a question about that for me?
Yes, we talked earlier about people grieving over pets.
Yes.
Losing jobs, houses, cars, anything. Anytime you lose something, it involves grief. When you lose something, it involves grief.
So here's the thing. Oh, I don't want to put it right there. I have to move a little bit. But here's what's important to me that everybody knows, because we know the downside, or we know the sad side, we know the oh my God side of grief, right? But we grieve because we had a powerful connection. There is no grief if there is no loss. There is no loss if you didn't have a connection. So I want you to know that the extent to which you feel horrible, awful, bad, that also is the extent to which you were connected, that you poured into as well as allowed pouring into you. And so grieving actually is an opportunity to stop and celebrate. There was this powerful connection that was good for me. And the grieving makes you stop and slow down and honor that. The question about, does my mother still remember me?
Yes.
My thought was, I don't think love dies. I think love changes. I think we change. I think spirit changes. I think soul changes. But there's some things that don't go away, and love is one of them. And grief really makes you stop and realize this is a big, huge, powerful thing, this connection and love I had. It's stopping me in my tracks. It is a hard thing. But there's always collateral beauty with this.
Now, what do you mean by collateral beauty with this?
You know, when we have wars and things, the generals always determine what is acceptable collateral damage. Like, what is okay to get somebody harmed? Like, what's the level that we're going to be all right with annihilating people? And that's collateral. That is, something's going to happen as a part of this process, no matter what. But you can also always flip that, and collateral beauty is what comes out of a humongously difficult process. You come out of it going, oh, first of all, love doesn't die, okay. Secondly, I'm more durable than I thought. Thirdly, there's more support than I knew I had. But I think all of our challenges come to us certainly to help us learn how to love, but it's also how to love ourselves. So there is some collateral beauty here when you get to look at yourself and go, oh, okay, I did that. I'm worthy of care, love, support. However I show up is the right way for me to show up. All those are other ways to accept where you are right now. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a powerful thing. So grief is about collateral beauty. But honestly, from a scientific perspective, I guess, our brain has to have time to create another box for this. You literally have to grow some new pathways for this because you didn't have them before. My example that always comes to mind is, I don't know if this is true, but it sounds good to me. When the explorers were coming in their great big ships to the shores of what is, I guess, United States, and the native people were there and they were looking and seeing the boats. They didn't see the boats. You know why they didn't see the boats initially? Because they had no rubric in their head for the boat. It was like, what? And we've all done that. Something huge will come up and you're like, I don't know what that is. I have to adjust. And so our brains do that with everything. So grieving is giving you time to see this new life coming at you. Gives you time to make some boxes and some space in your head for my next new normal. So you're mapping out the present. Questions about that so far?
Oh, yes, I've got a question here, Dr. Garrison. While grief is personal, do you counsel a family to understand each other's grief?
Let me see, example. The spouse is grieving, the children are grieving, they all grieve for different reasons. How do you help them all understand each other's grief and relate to each other? Well, y'all just want me to explain psychotherapy, huh? There are processes and schools of thought for how to move families through. I don't think that's what y'all want to hear. So the question has the answer right in there. Everyone has a slightly different story about the same time period and the same people. How many of us have brothers and sisters and we talk about we're growing up and you go, what family were you in? Because that's not what right. So everyone has their special and own experience of things, especially generationally. So I think the first important thing is to make clear that everybody doesn't have to grieve the same way. And that what is helpful for someone and what is considered support for someone isn't always support for somebody else. And that the main point is that you don't get to tell somebody else what they feel, and you don't get to tell somebody else what they need, and you don't get to tell somebody else what their reaction is. You can request behavior, you can prefer things, but we all come as sovereign individuals and sovereign beings, and that's who we are. So again, the potential for grieving as a family is some more collateral beauty. The potential for grieving as a family is to understand things in a way you didn't understand them before. I want to tell you what not to do. Oh, yes, ma'am.
I was going to ask you, what would you recommend to someone who has a loss and they live alone? But what would you recommend to them as, and I know you talk it out, cry it out, reminisce it out, but do you have any other recommendations for a person who is grieving and they live alone?
Right, human beings are pack animals, actually. We have existence within the group. We're like dogs and horses. I have to be involved with someone to know that I'm actually here, and that our emotional energy is very much tied to others. Our brains even have things called mirror neurons, because we're supposed to look at people and mirror whatever's going on. That's how children learn. That's how we know if we're here or set or not. This whole implicit bias thing about, oh, let's work on the implicit bias and get rid of it. Y'all, if anybody ever tells you that, tell them Dr. Garrison said, don't say that again. Implicit bias is what the brain does well before it gets to the frontal lobes. Your frontal lobes up here, this is the newest part of the brain. This is what we think we're so, very special in science and stuff. 2/3 of our brain is keeping the body alive and instinctual. That second level of the brain is mammalian. It's like, let's make sure we keep a group going. We have to have a society here because that's how we survive. And so implicit bias is I'm just simply walking down going, are you in group or out group? I don't know. Are you in group or out group? Let me see. Am I safe here? We're supposed to do that. So you make your decisions and then you have to think about them. But different people need interaction in different levels. I'm an extrovert. I could get up here and talk an hour and a half nonstop and not have a problem. And to everybody else. Everybody doesn't want to talk that much, but for grieving at some point, you do have to actually reach out and not become isolated. Because sometimes isolation is, I need some quiet time to myself. Sometimes isolation is, I am avoiding and hiding and harming myself. So it depends on the person and the amount, but it is not a good idea to stay isolated. It might be okay to be isolated for a while.
I have another question for you. It's been 3 years and I still cannot move my husband's clothes. People say I should give them away. Does this mean that I'm not grieving properly?
It means you put a pin in it, but what you have done is what you need to do. So if you need to put a pin in it for 3 years, put a pin in it for 3 years. But it's up to you. My father died in 2005. And I think I did everything but actively grieve, probably for about 8 years. I'm like, okay, nope, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing it. I don't know how to be in the world without my dad. I'm not doing it, never mind. And I did everything but grieve. I was quite functional, but not moving through. Those people who say to you, you need to what, give away his clothes? What was it? Give away his clothes. Okay, I don't know that they have a right to say that. Or rather, maybe that's not what they meant. What they meant is, why haven't you given his clothes away yet? Or what is the process that's going on? So when you put a pin in it, you just want to stay at the mourning part. I'm just going to keep rehearsing over and over the loss. I'm not going to grow through it, or I'm not ready to. The question is, how dysfunctional does that make the rest of your life? That question coming up from that person may be because somewhere they know, okay, I'm ready to do something different. Or maybe that question comes up because that person wants those around them to offer more loving support and not judgment. It depends. So I want to tell you what not to do, or what grieving is not for.
I have another question.
Okay.
And that question is, what is the difference between depression and grief?
Okay. Sometimes not much. Depression, we like to think about things in specific boxes, right? Somebody's depressed or they're not depressed. How crazy is that really? Everything is on a continuum. If at this point on the line, I am healthy, and 2 steps over, now I'm not healthy, that's not how that works. So depression also is on a continuum from sadness to depression to clinically depressed to having vegetative signs. So the diagnosis thing would be a certain amount of time. I'll actually read that. Hold on for a second. I can't flip these pages. So the depression definition is at least of the 5 following symptoms for a minimum of 2 solid weeks. Persistent depressed mood, decreased interest in most activities, possible weight loss, sleep disturbance, agitation or retardation. That means you're doing a whole lot of moving and just moving really slowly. Fatigue, unexplained. Feelings of worthlessness or inappropriate levels of guilt. Trouble concentrating. Recurrent thoughts of death or dying. Significant distress or impairment in other functions of daily living, and it's not due to physical or substance abuse. And in the DSM it says, and not due to normal bereavement, because all of those things happen when you're grieving somebody, right? So it's about duration, and it's about intensity. When a person is grieving and or sad and or depressed, and they're not eating, that kind of is accepted at the beginning, but if they're not eating and losing significant amount of weight too quickly, that's a thing to be concerned about. Sleep disturbance, sleeping too much or not sleeping enough. Eating and sleeping are considered vegetative signs. Like that's that normal, the body's gonna keep itself alive thing. And when you're beginning to challenge just staying alive, that's something to pay attention to and to see what should happen next.
What would you say when you find persons who do not want to be around grieving people? Even family members, they get, I always tell people when I'm doing my seminars that the process through is to talk it out, cry it out, reminisce it out, tell your story. But many people, even family members, they don't want to hear your story. I already heard it. Now, they're not going to say that, but you can tell, I don't want to hear this again.
So y'all know what I'm going to say. It's not about the person who's grieving. It's about the person who doesn't want to be around them. That person is uncomfortable. That person hasn't quite figured out what to do. That person doesn't know how to sit well with their own emotions and processes. But the biggest thing is that somehow we still believe we're supposed to be able to fix people. Somehow we believe we're supposed to know what to do and how to do it, and if we do it right, that person will be okay. And you can't fix grief. So again, this is another collateral beauty of grief. If you engage with it, you got to understand there's so much you're not in control of, and there's so much you're not supposed to be in control of. You're not supposed to fix folk. Matter of fact, fixing somebody is disrespectful. I know I'm talking to church people, but I may not come back. Y'all can be mad at me and talk about me behind my back when I leave, but this whole being nice, oh, I'm just so nice. Oh, baby, I'm going to go ahead and fix this. You don't know really. Let me do this for you. She don't know. I'm going to do it for her. That's so disrespectful. That's disrespectful. I'm not nice. I'm kind. Kind is respectful. What can I do for you? Hey, I'm noticing so-and-so and such and such. Like, is that true for you, or is this just my stuff? What do you need from me? If I can do that for you, I will. If I can't, it's my job to say, I can't do that. I'm not supposed to wear myself down to a nub showing up just because somebody else said they needed something and that I'm not a good person if I don't give it to them. Because there's so many people in the world. I'm supposed to do my lane really hard because nobody else can do my lane but me. If I try to step over and do your lane, okay, nothing's getting done. I'm not doing my stuff. I'm keeping you from doing yours. Okay? Thank you. So, when somebody won't be around, oh, I heard that already. Okay. Then leave them on over to God, Jesus, the universe, whichever words you all use, because everybody's on their path, and you don't know anybody's path but yours. But the point basically is, it does take a lot of love and compassion to simply walk with someone who's hurting and not feel like you got to fix their hurting so you don't get uncomfortable. It's not your hurting, it's theirs, and it's theirs for a reason. I think I heard a minister who worked with, like bikers and really rough people, and the person asked him, like, how do you stand it, all the pain that these people are going through? And he said, I don't feel responsible for carrying somebody's burdens, but I can carry them for a couple of steps while they hold their burden if it's too much, for just a couple of steps. That is what this is. So, honestly, people do generally know what they need. When someone's crying, I think, so what you said, cry it out, talk it out, the person knows what they want, what they need to do. Just give them space and witness. I do want to say one or two things before we get to the next question. So grieving in that instance is not about getting over it. Grieving in this way is not about even getting through it. Grieving is not about learning how to manage it. Grieving is not about controlling this. It's not any of those things. It's not getting over. It isn't even really getting through. It's about getting complete. I am so grateful to hear you say the story, because grieving, you're not grieving what has already happened. That's yours. That's happened. What you're grieving is the future that now you cannot recognize because something is missing. So interestingly enough, the way human beings work, now you have an opportunity to say, so what did all of that mean to me? Who was that then? What does this mean to me now? How do I move forward? So it is about getting ready to and then being willing to tell your story to yourself. To be honest about, okay, oh, my mom was the best one. Oh, okay, but maybe she wasn't actually perfect. And it doesn't take away the good parts, but being complete with it is what you need to do moving forward with all the information. So, for example, my dad, like, I'm not doing anything for 8 years. Oh, okay. So that really got me stuck a couple of places and kept me doing the same stupid things over and over again. I had to eventually realize that several things. My dad was I think the only man in this world that really knew I was a precious person, precious to him. I'm like, oh, I'm precious. And then I turned my head and looked at my husband like, I'm not precious to you. I'm a lot of things to you, but precious is not. And I know what it feels like because my dad showed me. Oh, right. So if I were precious to me, what would I do? Well, first, we're going to have to change some things over here. Because that's what I need, my story. My dad was the perfect person. He would go before me. He was the most, what's the word? He would say all kinds of outrageous stuff. And he was deeply compassionate. And he clearly wanted to understand things, but he did not suffer fools lightly at all. So anything I would say couldn't be bigger than what he just said, an hour before. So I felt like it wasn't safe in the world because he wasn't making a way and people were going to judge me. So I realized he was all those things, but he was other things too. He came from a family that was difficult for him. And some of my traumas were his too. And that he did the best he could, and I fully understood more and more just how much he did do for me. The more I got clear about who he was all the way. And then I realized it was some stuff he couldn't do. He left me in some situations possibly that weren't good for me, but that was his best. And so then I learned, so I can't do this without him, because at some points I was doing without him anyway. And that his love was always there, and that he believed in me, and so I can still do that. That's not how it happened in the first 8 years, though. I kept trying to engage with family in ways I knew was going to be crazy, all of that. So telling the story, and that takes years. Like you said, that takes years. You can't sit down and write out in one really good journal entry and then be done with it. Because you have to live the experiences. So grieving is a dynamic process. The only way out is back through. And you cannot do it alone, but you cannot 100% share it either. Does that make sense? Another question.
Dr. Garrison, we had a question earlier, Stephanie. Someone said they didn't want to live. They had lost a pastor and a brother close together, and they feel like this one, I would like for you to please comment on this.
What you do when you don't want to move on or you don't want to live, it's just too much to manage. I lost my pastor and brother in the same week. I think some of the things that you said, which is it's not going to feel like that every single day for the next 5 years. It's going to change some. However,
but the part that concerned
it's
me,
okay to feel like I don't want to live right now.
Okay.
Let me tell you this too. Suicide, which we did not get to talk about, has lots of levels and steps to it. It is human nature to sometimes wake up and go, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And not like I don't want to go to work, like I don't want to be here anymore. At some point, most people get that thought in their heads, whether you want to admit it or not. So that's called ideation. We think all kinds of stuff, right? I can be in a meeting and looking at somebody I know is coming for me and think, I'll just punch her in the throat. Okay, that's my thought. That's not what I'm actually do. I should pay attention to that feeling, though, because somebody's coming at me, and it may be the way I'm perceiving this, so that's important. The first thing is ideation. You're simply thinking it. The second step is intent. I just don't want to go forward. That's not the same thing as saying, and so therefore I'm going to figure out how to get dead. It's just like, oh, golly, I don't really want to wake up tomorrow. That's not the same thing as saying, so I'm not going to. So the next level is intent. Then you begin to think, and you know what? I could see this happening, and we're not done. Then the third level is a plan, because now that means you're serious. But that's not enough either. Then you have to have the means. So that's a lot of planning. You see, that's not a really totally impulsive thing going on. You've given it some thought. So I don't want to live is okay for the moment, as long as they can reach out to somebody and someone can say, oh, Tell me about it. Maybe not so much, don't feel that way. Oh, that's a feeling. But tell me about it. What do you need from me? Asking somebody about, you think you're going to hurt yourself? You're going to make it through the night. That's not going to make somebody do something if they were already planning it. And it's not going to put it in their heads if they weren't thinking it. It's a big, big thing. So again, collateral beauty, this person has a big, heavy thing to do. It is my personal belief that we are not given things that we cannot handle. It doesn't mean that we should handle it by ourselves, but it does mean that this time around, this is something that we're learning and we want to do and we can do it. But that person requires some time, some space, some support, some listening, and sometimes some direct questions. And they may require some additional psychological assistance if it looks like, because it depends on, did this happen, this pastor here, so this year, or are they talking about, it depends on the timing too and how close things are temporally.
Right. Well, let me share with you. We here at this church, our pastor died. We knew he was sick, but we didn't think he was going to die.
Right, I heard.
On February the 15th.
Right, so it hasn't been long.
So it hasn't been long. I'm his wife.
I know.
So we are, the whole church is in some stage of grief.
So February to March, it's been 2 months?
Yes, it was 2 months yesterday.
Okay, so this is still, y'all are still in the, ooh, something hit me in the head, what's going on stage. Mm-hmm. You are still in the, what does this mean? How can this be real? Mm-hmm. How do I make space for it? Which is exactly, completely, correctly where you're supposed to be. And everybody responds to, how do I make sense out of this differently? Those of us who need to be in strict control of our lives have a harder time with this. Because they're used to, oh, I can do this, this, this. When I do all the right things happen, and that's how life goes. And if you get to adulthood and something comes up and you can't fix it, of course that's going to give you reason for pause. That will eventually, on down the road, maybe next year, year after, is when your story starts to come in a place of, okay, so now, what else did this teach me? How scared was I? Why was I scared? What about this control thing? Where am I expecting something else to be out of control? How do I learn how to roll with it instead of trying to control everything?
Before you leave, Dr. Garrison, I have another question first.
What am I supposed to be done? We're supposed to be done at what time?
No, there's no time.
Because I told you I could talk an hour and a half.
When we stop crying and asking questions, that's
okay,
when we're done.
That's good.
Okay, when grieving people stop sleeping or eating, what should I do to try and get better? Are there any activities I can do?
I'm trying really hard to be relevant and appropriate, but that's not enough information because I don't know that person. I don't know the supports that they have around them. I can't say one thing that applies to everybody. If they've not been eating and sleeping for a week, that's one thing. If you haven't been eating and sleeping for 2 months, that's something else. Mm-hmm. If you would have some difficulty before passage, okay, so that's an issue for me as a psychologist. The fact that somebody asked the question is almost more important than the question. The question asking says, some part of my spirit knows I need to do something about this. And I'm asking for help. So the person should first and foremost reach out and talk to somebody.
Okay.
First and foremost. But that person, they got to be careful about who they talk to. Mm-hmm. Don't want somebody who's going to tell them, well, you just need to do so and so and so. Let me cook you good. Well, I'm just going to bring food over there. It'll be there. Maybe you're just not cooking. That might be it. But the person they need to talk to needs to be very kind and not nice and say, what's happening? Tell me what happens when you wake up and you don't eat. How can I help? What do you need from me? And then you stay in connection. Now, this is a church. Y'all know things happen in relationship. It's not just a one-shot deal and then you leave them alone. You check in, you say what's happening, and then you can see a progression. And again, if that person simply is not moving, and you in yourself feel uncomfortable, because remember, human beings, we're pack animals. I feel your energy. I can feel, I know when we're like okay or not okay. So if you are uncomfortable, that's information enough. Okay, babe, we got to go somewhere and talk to somebody. Like, I can't leave you alone right now. I guess maybe now's the time to talk about medication and antidepressants, I suppose, be a good thing.
Right, and also, if you could give us some hints, some things that we can possibly do to move through, to accept, to get to a point where we're on the road to being okay with this. There are some things.
I think you're doing it because you are saying out loud, this is hitting me. And when you say that, you give everybody else permission to go, oh yeah, it's hitting me too.
Mm-hmm.
When you model, I'm in this, I'm not in control of it, except when I can be. And then when I'm not, I'm not. That's where the power and the growing and the healing comes from. This is not only about giving your spirits and your soul time to adjust to having another soul and spirit ripped from your midst. That's part of it. But the other part is, and then so now how do we learn about being stronger together, closer together, more trusting and more faith-filled about I'm not in charge of things, but still things are okay. Would you say you're going to be all right? I'm not in charge of things, but you're all right now. Actually, you're not broken. You're just sad. You're not broken. You're hurting. You're not broken. You are confused and hit over the head, but you're not broken. And that this is an opportunity. So keep making a space for people to say, yep, this is a problem. Like a year from now, keep making a space and say, it's a year. We should all still be feeling a certain kind of way. If you are, that's fine. If you're not, that's fine. If you're not and you have a concern about that, pay attention to yourself. 6 more months from now, 2.5 years from now. This is still real for us. Look at the children. What are you communicating to them? The thing is to make sure that everybody, first of all, is kind, not nice, respects that everybody is in their own path, but we need to walk it together alone, and that you will show up for somebody. Does that help?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
one thing that I tell people in my seminars is not to make any major decisions, because a lot of times when people are grieving, they'll see it's like when you go to the dentist and they put Novocaine in your gum to numb it so that the pain doesn't hurt. We're in a stage where we want to find something to make us feel better. And so we start dating somebody that we know. We go to these dating sites and meet somebody that we know. I mean, they're not good for us, but they're going to make us feel good for a few minutes. So I always tell people, don't make any major decisions. I don't care how fine they are, because people can make themselves be anybody online.
That's true. However, the truth is the truth. And if they stay in connection with a supportive, caring community that won't drop them off, you can make a stupid decision, you can always make another decision. As long as you don't give somebody all your money or something.
Yes.
So it does go both ways. You do want to stop for a minute. But if you date this person or try to do something else thinking it's going to make it better, but the truth is the truth, it's not going to make it better. And eventually you realize, dang, that didn't work. You can realize that didn't work if you are still connected to caring, supportive, strong people who can still be there for you, not judge you, but say, okay, so what are we doing next? How are we going to help you get out of this? Let me still verify for you that you're still on that path.
I'm talking about people who get involved in relationships to trying to feel better.
I know, and we're disagreeing on this because I'm saying we always get in relationships to help us feel better, and it doesn't always go well. This may be one of those Band-Aids that someone is trying to do, and it's not a good idea. It's not a good Band-Aid.
They said it's okay to do that?
I'm saying that I can't make one statement that applies to every single person that's listening to me. But that
Yeah, we have to agree to disagree.
Yeah, we disagree on that one because everybody makes bad decisions in relationships. The problem is if you make a bad decision in this relationship and you're not paying attention to the fact that it's a bad decision.
Yes.
But then again, people do that when they're not grieving. So it's not only the relationship decision, it's that community again, so that you don't isolate yourself in this bad relationship and nobody gets to say to you, baby, you don't look like you're okay, what can I do? That is the other thing, and that these people have to not be judgmental of you necessarily. They got to be truth tellers. They can say, you know he's stupid, right? Or you know what she's doing. But the decision is always yours. And that if you are wanting to move forward and heal and grow, there are growing pains, and we make mistakes. So, I mean, because when my dad died, I looked over my husband like, oh, okay, so I divorced him. It was a good idea. It was a great idea. It was one of the best ideas I've had. It was not easy, and it has not been easy. And the further away I got from that, the clearer I saw what some of my bad decisions were, marrying him in the first place. But my father's passing was an impetus for me to get more honest and clear. So, again, I'm unwilling to say one straight thing for everybody. But what I will say is we don't operate in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. And that no matter what you do have to have those people who are around you. I want to go through a couple of myths before we do the next question, because these are myths about grieving. And I think y'all have heard them. I'm pretty sure that the First Lady has already said these. But first of all, time does not heal all wounds. I told y'all I put a pin in it for 8 years. No. So time doesn't heal all wounds. Okay, just keep your grief. Go into your own room. Go to your closet and handle that by yourself. Don't do that with other people. That's a bad idea. Be strong. Come on, be strong for the children. Be strong for the family. I mean, I think I heard First Lady talking about sometimes I'll cry, sometimes I'll post it, and sometimes I'm okay. That's strength. Vulnerability and flexibility takes strength. Loving somebody, protecting somebody, that takes endurance. It takes courage to be loved, to be vulnerable. So being strong is not a good thing to do. Sometimes, like we just say, somebody go, oh, we heard this already. Don't feel bad. They're in a better place. Don't worry, they're not hurting anymore. No, they're probably not hurting, but that's not what you're grieving about anyway. You're hurting, I'm hurting. Don't feel bad. Oh, I forgot to tell y'all this. So my psychology person and the person that I am understands that our emotions are very important pieces of information for us from the world. The way our brains are designed, we got a left brain and a right brain. The left brain is mostly language and linear stuff and math and all that, and the right brain is, generally speaking, art and flowy stuff and gestalt things. We have a part in the middle, in the kind of deep in our brain called the limbic system, and that's emotions. All the information that comes into us from our skin and eyes and has to go through the limbic system before it gets to these frontal lobes, where we're so terribly intelligent human beings. Everything goes through that. So if you are thinking, you are feeling. And if you are feeling, you are thinking. So don't feel bad is saying, please ignore 50% of the information that God set you up to be able to get from the world. Don't feel. Because if you feel, then you're making me feel, and I don't want to feel. So don't feel bad is not a good idea. Hurry up and replace the loss. That's not a good idea either. But sometimes people say that. Girl, you need to just get on out there and start doing things. Not until you've processed it, or just keep busy. Sometimes for some people that's good for a little bit, but if keeping busy is a way to not pay attention to your emotions, that's not a good thing. You have no question?
Yes. What are some resources and facilities or doctors that we can contact? I can recommend one book that I think is wonderful. You can read it in a day. It's called Good Grief by Granger, and I'll bring some to church. I've got a few at where I teach my seminars at Willie Watkins. I've got a few. I'll bring them. I'll try to have them here by next Sunday. I don't have a lot, but I'll just give them to whoever comes first. I'll give them to you. It's called
Another
Good
book
Grief.
another book that I suggest is called The Grief Recovery Handbook.
Okay, and who's the author?
Kellerman, I don't remember, but if you type in Amazon.com and do Grief Recovery Handbook, they will come up. It's seminal. It's 20 years, the 20th edition. There, it's two guys. They're talking about grief as a process. They're talking about how you finish and tell the story. They're talking about the myths. And they also suggest that you look at all the other losses that you've had. That's what we haven't had a chance to talk about, and that other person's question suggested that whenever there's one grief, it's always connecting to another grief that you know about. Mm-hmm. Because we're human. We've had losses. And that's why it makes your grief a little bit different than somebody else's, because it's connecting with you in a slightly different way than somebody else. It brings up the losses that you've had, which is an opportunity to continue to grieve and be complete or not.
Mm-hmm. And the other question is, how do you process your feelings? You believe your life is at a standstill and everyone else is moving forward.
So you might need to be in therapy, just going to say that. But if I'm going to say some general comments, what I will say is, if you can remember that you're not broken, if you can change the question to, if nothing is actually wrong with me, but I find myself in this place, now you have a different problem to address. If you have everything you need and you're in this place, okay, now that's a different way of looking at it. If nothing is wrong with you and you have everything you need and everybody's moving forward and you haven't moved, maybe you want to look at your definition of moving forward, these other folk, and why are you comparing yourself to them? Maybe you need to stop and look and go, maybe I took a different path. Maybe you can stop and say, so why am I looking for reasons to beat myself up? What's good in my life first? What's okay with me? Where's the growth point for me right now? I hope you all are understanding the theme, which is every time you're asking yourself a hard question, it's because your spirit is saying, hello, pay attention to this. You're ready. She ready. She's ready. You're ready. He's ready. Pay attention, and the very first thing that is the most powerful thing to do is start with self-acceptance. I'm not broken. I may have done some stupid things. I'm not stupid. I may have made some mistakes. I myself am not a mistake, and neither is my life. I might have done some regretful, mean things, but I am not in totality a mean, awful person who should be thrown away. So the first thing is to say, okay, so I feel like this is bad and awful. And everybody here grown, we all grown people. So you do understand that problem solving requires that you define the problem in a way that is solvable. Is that, y'all with me on that one? If you are looking at something and you can see that it's not solvable, what are you going to do? So you pay attention to the parts that you have influence over, and you can shift it. My belief is that the most important and powerful things about human beings is our perception and our attention. What I choose to pay attention to is the most powerful thing to me. Our perception is about how I respond to what happens to me, not what happens to me. I'm a cognitive behavior therapist, sort of, kind of. And so what CBT says is that you don't have control over what happens in the world. I tell the students, you don't have control over the questions they're going to put on the test. You have control of what you study, but you don't have control of what they put on the test. You also don't have control over if there's a car wreck, a tsunami, or a COVID-19 pandemic. What you do have control over is what you study and the attitude with which you bring to the test. So you have control over how you choose to see the problem before you, We all grown in here, so you also know that you need to check out with other folk to make sure you're seeing it, you know, just do a little bit of reality testing. But the most powerful thing is take control of what is actually yours. Because if you believe all them folk who moving on along, well, you know, we just gonna give her some grace, she'll catch up eventually. Oh, no, you're right exactly where you're supposed to be.
There weren't any more questions, but if you have some more statements, and then we can close, because I know everybody's hungry. But I thank you so much for being so wonderful, and you have been just absolutely, Dr. G. I see Dr. G written down here, so we're going to call you Dr. G.
Okay, that sounds good.
You have been wonderful, and we're going to be better as a result of having been with you today.
And that's all I require. The reason I'm a psychologist is because I want to tell people the truth. And I want to, at this point in my career, I simply want to say what I just said to you all. I don't fix people. I am so grateful when I understand that I have helped somebody figure out how to move themselves forward, because that just puts out all kinds of ripples in the universe and is great karma back for me. One of the other resources is find a psychologist, find a therapist, talk to your primary care doctor if there's somebody that they might recommend, but be very careful about the online therapists these days because they have exploded.
Yeah, that's right.
So the thing, I'll say the same to you now that I've always said, when you want to get engaged in therapy, and therapy should feel like this, it should feel like a conversation. Therapy is not like what medical doctors do where they sit down and ask you a whole bunch of questions, decide on their own what's wrong with you and tell you what to do. That's not what that's supposed to be. And if it feels like that, then you need to politely pick up your stuff and keep moving. But you should be willing to meet with a person once, maybe twice, and if you don't feel settled and okay, you don't have to go back. It's not against the law. If someone suggests something to you that you don't want to do, you don't have to do it. It's not against the law. What's against the law is killing somebody. So if you were showing up going, you know, I need to take this person out, okay, they're probably going to put you in the hospital, just going to tell you that. As well they should. But outside of that, no. So a therapeutic relationship, because therapy is a relationship and it's one direction. That's fantastic. Okay, so the last thing I just want to give you all, there's somebody named Rondo, and I couldn't find the actual citation because I heard it in a workshop for physicians, but there are 6 R's to grieving, and I thought this was so cool. And some of them are about accommodating the loss, and some of them are about confronting where you are. So the first one is to, and this is kind of a summary, what we said. Recognize the loss. Some people, such as myself, okay, he's not really gone. Okay, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna talk to spiritual people. I'm gonna go, consult the stars. He's not really gone. So recognize the loss. It means that you understand this is gone and that you have your own definition of gone. That's accommodate. You got to make space. Remember, your brain is making room for this. Then first you recognize it, and then you react. And this is confronting. This is reacting, and this is what you're talking about. Cry, talk, cry some more, sleep. It's a good day. I'm going to go do some stuff. Oops, tomorrow. Cry, talk, sleep. Ooh, it's a good day. I'm going to cook dinner. Cry, talk, sleep. What we know is that when you try to not feel the great big wave of grief, it comes back stronger. When that wave of grief comes, it does knock you down for about 2.5 seconds. And that when it comes back different. Not easier, but different. And grieving gets you to the place of the loss where it's different, not necessarily always easy. Recollect and re-experience. So that's the other thing you said. Tell the story. Is that what you were saying about tell the other person? Recollect and re-experience the relationship and the person you lost. It is not taboo to talk about the person that you lost 3-4 months later. Oh, so we do that all the time. That's a good thing. That's also confronting, because what you're doing is practicing knowing that the person is not present here with you, but the presence is still available to you, and you're trying to build another block in your brain for that. Relinquish old attachments and old assumptions. That's like, okay, now I got to build a new normal, and this new normal doesn't have that person in it present. So when we try to do the same things the same way over and over, it doesn't ever work out very well, right? Because you're trying to recreate something that's not possible. Okay.
Can you give us an example of that?
Yeah, like when there's the big family dinners, and grandma always was the one that did the dinners, and we're going to do it just like what grandma did it. But you can't, because grandma's not there. So you can recreate events in honor of, not as if it's the same. Can you tell the difference? In honor of. So like my dad liked to cook. So instead of bringing everybody together because we're going to have hot dogs and chili, which is one of the things he did really well, like he was there, on his birthday, I'll cook hot dogs and chili because I like that. And maybe I'll invite somebody over, or maybe not.
So, for example, going to the same restaurants, I'll use me as an example.
Yes.
That my husband and I used to go to, and I was sharing earlier, I have done that. But all I do is I don't eat, I cry.
Yes,
so then I end up getting a box to go.
Yes, ma'am, it's been 2 months. That's where you're supposed to be. It's not supposed to be anything different but that. Eventually, it is going to those same restaurants and going, oh, I remember how this was. Yes, this was a really good thing. Or bringing somebody along. I don't know if you have children or grandchildren. Let's go. This is where we used to sit. This is where he was real for me. But it's not time for that. It's not time for that. It's time to go there and cry. And that is perfectly correct. And you can go there and you can cry, and then you can either go home by yourself, or you can go to somebody's house and say, hey, I still need to cry. Excuse me, can I come in for a minute? That's what it's time for right now. And you'll know when it's time to do something different. Readjust so that you adapt to what is real with the loss you adjust to the loss without pretending that the loss didn't happen, or that you adjust to the loss without having to replace the loss. That's really hard, because that's everybody's individual thing. And then that last one is, because this moving forward is now developing a new identity. Like, I'm a fatherless child now. And that wasn't something that was comfortable for me to say, because that was the awfulest, horriblest thing in the world. But now I can, because in a way, I have a continuing relationship with my dad, actually. We talk, and my daughters call and say, Mama, I just saw 1022. His birthday was October 22nd. I just saw 1022 or so. So, we have ways of feeling that he's still there, but we're not confused. He's not physically there. So, adjusting to that and then reinvesting in this new life without that person. So that means, for us, new traditions that we tried desperately to keep going while my dad was still alive. It didn't work. They really hinged on him. Okay, so now I'm reinvesting. What is this new thing? But I'm ready to know how to do that forward. And that takes years. I'm done.
Incredible, this new identity. Ugh.
Yeah, I used to work at Grady. I just stopped working at Grady in December, the oncology. I have a half-day clinic. I had a half-day clinic at Grady as the psychologist in the oncology, the cancer center. And I work a half-day at Morehouse Healthcare there, as well as do director and teach residents, supervise. But with my cancer patients, my women who were so wonderful, we talked a lot about new normal. Because no matter if the cancer treatment goes well or not, you now are no longer a person that is innocent of cancer. It touched you. And you don't get to look at the commercials the same way as everybody else. So you have a new normal to create. And I guess I'll say this now since it has come up. Cancer and death of people who are important to us make you think about two things. Make you think about death, theirs and yours. But what I say is, but did you take another breath in this next minute? So you still living. So the other thing is, how you living? How are you living? Death also makes you look at living. And we are equipped to be able to do that, like you said. We are equipped to be able to do that. Some parts of it all by ourselves, and some parts of it must be done in community. So not only are you going to be all right, you are all right. You are not alone. You are doing exactly what you're supposed to do. The things that are under your control are the wild cards, which is what you choose to think, what you choose to say, how courageous you choose to be, and your perception and perspective of what's the problem before you.
Let's give Dr. Garrison a hand. She's been wonderful. I want to thank Dr. Adeline McElroy, and I call her husband Mr. Wonderful, because she is the head of our medical team, and it's Dr. Adeline McElroy that always brings these dynamic doctors before us. So Dr. Adeline McElroy she deserves a big hand. I didn't know Dr. Garrison. She researched and found her, and I'm telling you, she finds the best people, all the doctors.
And she pulled forth a lot of energy. It's hard to corral me. So she was really on it.
She is just the greatest. And I want to thank Stephanie for writing all these questions and keeping up with everything online, and everybody in our global audience that was participating. Thank you. And our cameramen. This is my team. I love them. I thank them. Larry Gilpin back there. Thank you. Thank you, Larry, and our video team that's upstairs. I know Ernestine is up there, and I don't know if, is she by herself? Who? Sandra Wall was up there. Well, somebody's up there with her. Sandra Wall, okay, is up there with her. Let's give them a hand. I want to thank everybody and all of you. This has been wonderful, and we need this at this time. You have helped me. And I'll take a little step further when I go home today. I'll be a little bit better. But I know it takes time. I know it takes time.
There is no timeline for this.
Right.
There are parameters that if you are harming yourself, and if you're harming yourself, either you know it or people close to you know it, and that will be apparent. But outside of that, there's no timeline. I'm much more interested in people accepting where they are, accepting what they have to do, and learning from that. Because then you're more yourself, more powerful, more present in the rest of your life, which means you add more wonderful stuff into the world. If you are doing self-acceptance, you can only love somebody to the extent that you love yourself.
Right.
And so going through this, that's the other collateral beauty here. You got to figure out, okay, I got to care for me enough to do the right things for me.
Right.
And when you do that, you're who you're supposed to be.
Right.
That can't be anything but best for the world.
Thank you, Dr. Garrison. And thank everybody for watching this evening, this afternoon. We thank you so very much. And this has been another Power Talk with Lorraine Jock White. And that is the end.